Nation. The hobby is the people. Weekly news and interviews. It's your number one source. Sports Card Nation. The hobby is the people. Sports Card Nation.
Welcome to another stocked and loaded episode of the Sports Card Nation podcast, the show that brings you all the important hobby news, discussions, debates, opinions, info, and interviews with key hobby and sports dignitaries. Also, if you're good, you know we are going to give away something. Now, here's the guy that wanted the cards more than the gum. John Newman.
Welcome to episode 72 of the Sports Card Nation podcast. Back again for another week of some hobby stuff. Hopefully the sound of my voice finds you well during these difficult times. I will say this, as someone who watches the news every day to kind of keep tabs, this week a little more optimistic than previous weeks. Some numbers and death tolls and infection rates are starting to come down. Some of these sports leagues are actually talking about contingency plans of how to get back on the playing surface. And, we really haven't had that kind of discussion in a while. So maybe we're getting close to turning a corner. Cross our fingers. But happy to be back for another episode. Great show today. We got artist Blake Jamieson. Blake is one of the commissioned artists on the Topps 2020 project, where our 20 artists have been commissioned to do their take on 20 iconic rookie cards. So it's going to be a 400 card set, and Blake is going to be in charge of doing 20 of those 400 cards, his renditions. If you've ever seen Blake, he's a great artist, but he's got a different style, uses multi forms of media. We talk about that during the show today. We talk about how he left a real cushy situation, doing very well in the corporate industry, and left that safety zone, left it, took a leap of faith, kind of left just not real happy where he was, and left without really knowing what he was going to do next. Really took a chance and found his passion, which really was always art, but he went back to it. Used his expertise in the marketing field to market his own artwork, and he does a great job of it. Impressive. He's going to talk about all that stuff. He's going to talk about how he and Topps hooked up for him to be one of the commissioned artists. He's going to let us a little bit behind the scenes of that project, tell us some stuff that you otherwise may or may not know, and a really great conversation. Blake's a great, not only a great artist, but a great individual person as well. I think that's going to come through very obviously during the interview. So I'm glad Blake made some time for us. He's also going to come back again towards the end of the Topps 2020 project and kind of put like a recap on everything and how it went and what he thought. And Blake's going to tell you he's very competitive. He wants to sell the most cards, and he's competing not only against the other artists in a friendly sort of way, but with himself as well. And I love that. We're going to talk about that during the interview as well. So great interview coming up with Blake. We got a new segment that we debuted last week. What did the Newman say? And what that is, folks, is, I get asked a question or two. It seems like each day, either a hobby question, my opinion on something, whether it be, hey, should I do this? Or what do you think of this? Or sometimes I get some podcast questions. Maybe someone just wondering about podcasting or about how I do something, or, just things with my show. And so, I'm going to pick one question every week and answer it on the air, if you will. If the person gives me permission, I'll use their name. If not, I'll leave them nameless. But Also, just so you know, if you do private message me or text me, I answer every one of those. It's a pet peeve of mine. I make a point to answer every one. So you may hear my on-air answer, but chances are, or no doubtably, I've already answered that question via text or verbally. But I'll choose one a week and kind of answer it again. I'll try to pick a question, obviously, that I think sort of interesting or has something where I can kind of elaborate on it, where maybe other people question I believe maybe other people were wondering or would find interesting. Rookie Rollercoaster is back this week, and man, we got two big ones on that. We got the Michael Jordan 86-87 Fleer rookie. We're going to look at that card, and the Wayne Gretzky O-Pee-Chee rookie. So two iconic stars of the game, maybe the best players of their sport ever. We're going to look at those two rookie cards and see what those have done in the last 3 to 4 months, especially during current events. It'll be interesting to look at those. And that's a segment we're going to try to do each week with two cards in the hobby, two rookie cards. So it's called Rookie Rollercoaster. I hope you enjoy it. Now, when I came up with that segment, folks, obviously I was anticipating sports would actually be going on. So we've kind of had to pivot and do the best we can with that segment without actual sports being played. And it'll be a lot more fun, I think, when sports resumes. But it's fun to do that segment. I hope you enjoy it. So let's not delay any longer. Let's get this thing started.
Here we go.
Time for this week's
Incoming!
product releases. All right, let me do the customary things may be delayed or pushed back due to the COVID-19 outbreak and shutdowns, especially with Cartamundi. So these are all technically tentative, but we'll list them out in any case. April 17th, 2019, Panini Chronicles Football. April 22nd, we have 4 releases at least slated. 2019-20 Panini Mosaic Basketball. 2019-20 Panini Noir Basketball. 2020 Panini Contenders Draft Picks Football. That's actually out now. 2020 Score Football. The 24th, we have 2020 Topps Transcendent Hall of Fame Baseball. 2020 Sage Hit Premier Draft High Series Football. And so that gets us to the 24th, about a week. Again, everything is tentative, but many of these products probably have been printed and packaged and ready for shipping before. So hopefully for those that ordered it or are looking to open it, there's no delays. As we go past the next few weeks, that's where things may get even more interesting.
Sports Card Nation Podcast is your weekly hobby and sports podcast. Now on tons of platforms including Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Stitcher, and many more. Listened to in 44 different countries globally, Sports Card Nation is one of the most interactive podcasts around, providing great content, giveaways, and some of the hobby's best interview guests without time constraints. Thousands can't be wrong. We want to thank all the wonderful listeners around the world, our awesome guests on the show, and our tremendous sponsors making us what we are today. Remember, without you, there's no us.
It's time for What's Cracking. All right, as ESPN gets ready to air Michael Jordan, The Last Dance, unedited. Well, I don't want to say unedited, but there's going to be profanity on that show. Pretty rare for ESPN to do that, but kudos to them. The last time they let profanity on any of their programs was when they aired that series, The Ballers. So it's going to be Raw, Michael Jordan Raw, and with that coming out, Michael Jordan cards. I don't think I'm breaking news here. Going up tremendously. We're going to talk about one of those cards, his rookie 86-87 Fleer on the rookie Rollercoaster segment. I think that's going to go up even more than what you'll hear during that segment. I've sold quite a few of most of my Jordan inventory, to tell you the truth. I don't know if I'll regret that in a few months, but it was recently, so with the price spike, and it's just funny. Anytime something like this, news or a new series with a retired player, a lot of times it re-spikes interest in that product. Jordan's not scoring any more points, but it brings him out to the forefront. And I think with the COVID-19 stoppage and shutdown, we're just trying to gravitate to anything we can grasp onto sports-wise. And so this show is going to have ratings through the roof. And obviously Jordan cards are really starting to rise in price level. So I, for one, will be watching The Last Dance. Little insider family stuff. My son's name is Jordan, and he was indirectly named after Michael Jordan. I was reading when my wife was pregnant. I was reading Michael Jordan's book, For the Love of the Game. It was on my coffee table, and we were just kind of throwing names out there, and I was looking at that book, and I have a relative named Michael, so I wasn't really thinking Michael, and I just yelled kind of out loud to Jordan, and my wife liked it, and the rest is history. So my son Jordan Newman, his namesake show, The Last Dance, he's going to be watching it as well. Let's turn to the grading world. PSA and BGS are back running, sort of, on a low-level limited basis, so they're not at full strength, but they're trying to slowly but surely work their way and not be completely closed. So they have limited staff, so they're not fully shut down. And SGC, it's a company I just got an order back from very quickly. Be honest with you, very pleased with the service. I think they've really, really made strides. If you look, we talked about this an episode or two back. The gap between them and the other grading companies is closed significantly. A lot of people are jumping over to SGC. Now, some of that might be due to being they're open and full capacity, but they have really one of the better reps. They don't have a lot of black eyes and stuff they're being accused of, and I think people are seeing kind of alternatives in the grading card market. So I was very pleased. I'll probably at some point send another order. We'll have to have Peter Steinberg come back. He was on the show during last year's National in Chicago, so we'll get him back on. I know he just appeared on Drew's show. I think a lot of people are really come around to them. I think they've become more acceptable and more mainstream, and good for them, because as far as I was concerned, they were always in the big three. Let's talk about a couple things with the companies. Kudos to Upper Deck. They're doing a Upper Deck Heroes, a digital release, and it's interactive with your help. They want to honor and represent the heroes of the pandemic. Nurses, doctors, people going that extra mile, doing things out of the kindness of the heart. So you can nominate someone you believe fits that bill by posting a picture and what they're doing with the hashtag Genuine Heroes. That's hashtag Genuine Heroes. There may be, right now it's just a digital card set, but Upper Deck has said they may decide to release it in hard copy form. And I'll be honest with you, I think that's great. I think the one thing that's came out of this pandemic I know it's you've seen a lot of a lot of posts about it, cliches, but it really is true. We found out some, now I knew this stuff too, but some people found out through this pandemic that the heroes aren't actors and actresses in movie and TV. They're not athletes always on the field. Our heroes are those people on the front lines: doctors, nurses, military, police, fire, people working through the pandemic to keep shelves stocked in food and supplies where they need to be, and medical, everything. You know what I'm talking about. And unfortunately, I guess if there is a silver lining, there really isn't a lot to what's going on, is I think those folks are getting the due they deserve, unfortunately through a bad episode, but at least they're getting the credit they duly deserve. So kudos to all those real heroes, and kudos to Upper Deck for recognizing them in digital form at the moment, but maybe hard copy form as well. Talk about a product that's actually in hard copy form and released and out. Panini Draft college football, and that stuff's red hot right now. It's traditionally not a product that fares very well, but this year's version is doing very, very well. Red hot. I'll be honest with you, my opinion is, sell it, strike while the iron's hot. If you do have some big pulls out of that, I think one of the reasons that product is so hot is just folks know that it's going to be one of the last things to come out here with the shutdown of production. And so people are grasping on anything. It's probably going to be the only football product for a while with this year's rookie class: Burrow, Tua, Herbert, Love, and the wide receiver class and whatnot. So I think people are just, because it's sort of going to be the only game in town, people are just scooping it up quickly, and prices are getting elevated. Long term, I don't think it's going to be what it's right now. I mean, you can say that about a lot of products. I understand that, but I would strike while the iron's hot there. I think this is a situation where the demand outweighs the supply, and then people know that we may not have another 2020 football product release, at least in the unseen future, and maybe for quite a while. And so Panini College Draft is taking advantage and riding that wave of interest. So we recently did a poll on our social medias with the stimulus checks starting to arrive. And so the question was, stimulus checks are arriving, will you? One choice was spend all of it on the hobby. The second choice was spend some on the hobby. And the third choice was spend none on the hobby. And so the lowest one out of the three was spend all on the hobby. That came in at 9%, which I expected. And the other two were dead heat, tied at 46% each, and spend some on the hobby and spend none on the hobby. And the spend none on the hobby being at 46% surprised me a little bit. I thought it would be a little bit lower than that. I figured spend some on the hobby would probably win with. I predicted in my head about 60%, but they spend some and spend none tied at 46%. And I just think, that what I took from that is I think people are just being smart. They know this might go longer than first expected, and they want to be very diligent with that discretionary income. And it's smart. As much as I love the hobby, I'll never steer someone and say, buy all the cards you want and everything's going to be great very soon. And no, you got family first. Take care of your family and your needs. Get your bills paid as best you can. Cards are always going to be here when things do come back to normal. So if you have discretionary income, you're still working, you're not super concerned long term, now is a buyer's market. I mean, that's something I've been doing all month of March here in the front part of April. From Newman Sports Cards. March is one of the rare months I've spent more than incoming. It's usually the other way around, but there was just too many deals. I don't want to say panic selling, but there were just too many decent deals for me not to buy. And that's my suggestion. If you have that discretionary income, if you're not worried about buying too much now and then paying for it later as far as being short, it's a buyer's market. There are people doing selling collections, some people just selling bigger lots, bigger cards at a discounted rate. So if you have those funds, you can have a little fun right now.
We love our listeners. Without you, there is no us. We care about your opinions and feedback and invite you to reach out to us on any of our social media accounts. On Instagram at Sports Card Nation Podcast, Twitter at SportsCardNati1, or email the show at sportscardnationpc@gmail.com. We don't ask for much, but if you really like the show, give us a shout out. Tell your friends or give us a follow on our social medias. If you enjoyed the show, please give us a positive review on iTunes or any of the platforms you are listening on. Thank you.
All right, my next guest on the One of One Card Shop Sports Card Nation guest line is an artist. His name is Blake Jamieson, based in New York, does some incredible work. But recently, he was one of the 20 commissioned artists for the Topps 2020 project that's making big hobby news in current events. So I'm happy Blake made some time for us, talk about that, talk about his artwork, how he got his start, and all that good stuff. So Blake, welcome.
Thanks, man. I'm happy to be here as well.
Yep. Well, thank you. You're based in New York. I know you've been in a few different cities. I've seen your work, and the thing I love with you is you'll YouTube like the process. There's no real secrets, and you'll use multiple forms of media on one piece, and that's just I don't know. I always enjoy those where it's just an eclectic mix of media, right. Spray paint, acrylic, stencils, and then to see the finished product. Sometimes when watching you do that, you're like, at first you're like, I don't even know where this is going, and then obviously you get to the finished product. Just kind of talk about your style and maybe how would you describe it yourself and some influences even.
Sure, of course. I'm definitely very inspired and influenced by graffiti and street art. I've just always been drawn to, I guess, that style of art. And so, stencils and spray paint are very popular in street art, primarily because you spend so much time cutting out a stencil, you can get a really detailed picture. And then if you take it into the streets, if you're doing street art or graffiti illegally, it's very fast, where like you hold it up, you spray the spray paint on, and then you run away. Yeah. And so that's like a very popular medium for street art, kind of because of like the convenience of the speed. But I don't really do any art out in the streets unless it's a commissioned mural. So I've kind of taken that and brought it into my studio and using it on canvas. In terms of specific influences, there's an artist, a really great stencil artist named Christian, but he goes by C215. I believe he's from France, and he just does amazing stencil work. He does a lot of portraits like myself and also a lot of animals, a lot of cats. Yeah. So he's great. And then also, it's cliche, but Andy Warhol is a huge influence for me, and it's partially just because of his process and his art. I do enjoy that, but I also really appreciate and respect how he was able to build a brand and do the marketing side of things. And so, I didn't always work in art. In fact, I worked in marketing for a long time, and so I understand that side of the business is equally important as the technical side of the art, and so I try and split my time in what I spend my time doing and building my brand, and also specializing and harnessing my craft, right, in the painting itself.
Like I said, incredible. And you mentioned Andy Warhol. I mean, I don't know many people who don't know him. You don't have to even be a fan of art. He's just kind of,
Right.
transcendent. And I, looking at some of the stuff you've done, I can see, there is some of that influence. At least I think,
Definitely.
In your work. And you touched on it just there in your response. You were in the corporate field. I know you left that in 2015. Tell us about that decision. How tough was it? Why you did it? That sort of thing.
Sure. So I have like a little bit of a different story than the typical artist story you hear. So growing up, I always loved to draw and paint and create anything. I was into photography, into any kind of art. And so when I went to college, my parents were actually really encouraging me to follow that and do what I love and, go to an art school or just major in art or at least minor in art. And at the time, I had kind of convinced myself that art wasn't a viable career path. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to do something that was going to be like, quote unquote, the safe route. And so I studied economics at UC Davis. And then pretty much right after graduating, I got into digital marketing. It's right when social media marketing was like blowing up. This was like 2009. And it was a really good time to get into that industry. I rode that wave for a long time, worked in that industry for almost a decade. And then it was really my 30th birthday. I was living in Phoenix, Arizona at the time. And that's when I decided, I woke up on my 30th birthday and I'm like, man, I just don't really love what I do right now. Mm-hmm. And, for a long time it was creatively stimulating and challenging, but I just got to a point where I felt like I wasn't enjoying waking up like Monday through Friday. So It was it wasn't really a hard decision. It was just like, well, I only get one shot at this life. So let's make the most of it. And so I quit that, and I didn't necessarily quit saying I'm going to quit to become a full-time artist. It was like, I'm going to quit, do a little bit of soul searching and figure out what I really want to do. That turned out, in my time off, like sabbatical, I basically started painting and then was like, you know what? I've marketed other people's stuff for so long. I'm pretty sure that I can market my own work. And if I work hard, I can probably get my art to a point where I'm actually comfortable trading it for money, and kind of the rest is history.
Yeah, I was going to say the rest. And that's awesome. And you bring up a great point that maybe a lot of other people get to that, stage where they hit a wall. Maybe they're not excited about where they're at. And then, you showed that, hey, I can kind of leap of faith. I can really do something that I have a real true passion for and be successful at it. So it's a great example for maybe someone who's thinking about that. Like you said, unless you're Shirley MacLaine, you only have one life. So,
exactly.
You got to make the best of it. There's no mulligans. Right. So, really cool that you did that and you are where you're at. I know. Are you a sports fan to begin with? I got to ask that.
Of course, yeah. So I was born in California, and I grew up going to Oakland A's games with my dad. We had season tickets from the age that I was 2 until, I'm trying to think of like when. So then when I was 5, we moved to Florida, and then we started going to spring training games. So we'd go to Texas Rangers and the White Sox.
Yeah.
I think they shared a stadium in Sarasota, and so we would also go to that spring training. So I really grew up on baseball and was a huge card collector back then. We have pretty much every single set printed from 1985 to 1995, which is really a time when they were printing so many cards that not a lot of those are very rare, but it's still cool because now, like you mentioned with this Topps project, like a lot of the cards in the set that they've given us are cards that I remember collecting as a kid. So that's like super special. At some point, I started playing, I played t-ball as a kid, and then I played a little bit of baseball, but I was like pretty ADD, and I just didn't have the patience for baseball. And so I ended up playing soccer, wrestling, and lacrosse all through high school. And then in college, I played lacrosse. So I've definitely been very involved in sports ever since I was a little kid. And now I'll play a little bit of like rec sports or whatever. I've also done a little bit of coaching on the lacrosse side. So I still try to stay involved in the sports communities as much as I can.
Yeah, that's cool. Now, I know you've done, if I'm not mistaken, you can correct, you've done some work for some athletes themselves.
Oh, yeah. That's the majority of my business is portraits. It's one-of-one commissioned portraits of athletes for the athletes themselves. So if you look at, my collection of work, I've painted probably I'd say maybe 500 professional athletes.
Wow.
And 400 of those were for the actual play. Whoever it's a picture of, like, that's who has the painting now. You know, because I've gotten, I don't know, I have like a good reputation in the sports portrait world. So, you know, sometimes somebody will come to me and say, hey, I'm a huge fan of Michael Jordan. Will you paint me one? And obviously that's not for Michael Jordan, but most of the stuff that's out there that I've done has been for the players themselves.
Yeah, it's, again, incredible stuff. I've seen it. And that's another thing I love with what you do is you're very open with it. You show how you put it together. You're very interactive with your fans. You ask their opinions. Hey, do you like this one? Do you not? Do you like this one better? You know, a lot of artists probably, you know, I don't want to paint with a broad brush, but some artists are probably a little more less open, if you will, and they kind of have their own. But the one thing I admire with what you do is you kind of let people in to the process, and it's pretty refreshing to see. And you know, even watching, you almost feel like I'm not doing anything, but you almost feel like you're involved in a small, even in the smallest capacity. And
of course,
I love how you do that. And did you know when you finally, you know, when you realized you were going to enter the art world on a full-time basis, did you know it would be a lot of sports? Did you already know, being a fan, and did you know that's where your tendencies were going to go?
So the short answer is no. I had no idea, but I had the idea in my mind ever since I decided to pursue it full time that I wanted to specialize and I wanted to have a unique niche, that I was going to be like, I'm the guy for this, you know, instead of just like a broad artist saying, I make paintings of whatever I feel like and whoever buys them, you know, they're for everyone.
Yeah.
I just don't think that that's a strong marketing angle, and that's like the marketing background coming out. And so when I first switched over from the digital marketing stuff to full-time art, I actually branded myself differently, saying I make art for offices. And it was like kind of, I've always painted portraits, but I was doing kind of like inspirational, motivational stuff. So I was doing pictures of like Steve Jobs, for example.
Yeah.
And then I would sell that to a company in San Francisco.
Yeah.
So, and that was partially because I felt like there was nobody really focusing on that. Like, I wouldn't say like a high-end art market, but I mean, my art's not cheap. There wasn't somebody meeting that middle market where somebody wants original art, but they don't want to pay, you know, they don't want to go out and buy a Picasso or a Warhol, but they also don't just want a cheesy print that they order online that everybody else has.
Yeah.
And so also, like, at the time, all of my connections were people that worked at like PR firms and marketing agencies. And so I just started hitting them up and said, hey, this is what I'm doing. Here's some samples of my work. And that actually went really well. For, I'd say, about a year to a year and a half, I was just focused on that and really getting a lot of momentum. I was doing a lot of my marketing on LinkedIn, which is great to reach business people, and also great because no artists market there. And again, it's just like my thinking of like, why would I go and focus on Instagram when my customers are on LinkedIn? Yeah. And so then what happened is about 3 years ago, I was in Las Vegas. I was delivering art to a different client and had, you know, delivered the art. That was successful. And then I just went out and I went to this concert. And at the concert, I met this guy, Jared, who is an ex-NFL player. Now he manages other NFL and professional athletes. And he saw my work and we just like hit it off. And he said, you know what? If you paint a couple of my clients, let me introduce you to 3 of my clients, paint them for free, just in good faith. Yeah. I'm going to get them to share it and promote it. And then all their teammates are going to want one. Like, trust me, this is going to work. And, you know, I wasn't crazy busy at the time, so I had the bandwidth to do it. And I'm like, okay, let's try it. And so we did it, and like it was crazy because every time I do, and I still do a handful of free paintings for people I call strategic gifting. Every single strategic gift that I do, on average, gets me one paid customer. Yeah. And so when I look at it as like the collector base of athletes, it's actually perfect because these guys are competitive by nature. And so if one guy gets a painting, the next guy wants a bigger painting, or he wants 2 paintings. Yeah. It's just like it's in their DNA to be competitive. So I've kind of like refined that strategic gifting process. So like, again, I mentioned all those, 500 paintings, 400 of them were for the athletes. Of those 400, 200 of them were paid and 200 of them were strategic gifts. And with the strategic gifts, I've got a really good system down now where like I'll reach out to the player ahead of time. I'll show them some of my work. I'll let them know I'm willing to do a painting for them for free as long as they post about it and promote it when they get it. When I ship the painting to them, I never ship it to their house. I only ship it to the training facility because I've learned that the training facility will unbox it. They're going to put it, they like display it in the locker.
Yeah.
Like, and so like, it's really cool. I mean, I bake it into my marketing, right, as a marketing cost. And,
yeah.
And it's also fun because like, that's how I get my art to a lot of the big guys, you know, the Drew Breeses, Antonio Browns, the Mike Trouts.
Yeah.
Those guys, like, they're not going to really seek me out and pay for a painting because they have thousands of people that are willing to do it for free. But if I can get their attention and get in the door, then other people see it and they don't know whether or not, you know, Drew Brees bought the painting or if I gifted it to him. So it's just it's a fun marketing strategy.
Yeah, and you've taken your marketing background and implemented it into your own business, which is just hands down smart and gives you kind of a competitive advantage. Even you mentioned LinkedIn, you know, hey, no one's doing this there. Why not? I'm gonna, you know, I got a monopoly in a sense, and
right.
you know, it's just smart on your part. And so I love hearing that you know you've taken that and used it into this next stage of what you're doing. So I mentioned, you know, you use multiple medias when you create your art. Did you do that right off, like from the jump, or did you kind of, you know, do that? You learned to do that. Like, can you speak to that?
Yeah, I started out almost all spray paint.
Yep.
Stuff that spray paint's a big part of it, and so I started with that. And you know, as an artist, we're always trying to experiment and like push the boundaries. And so I'm always trying, you know, new different materials and new things. And you know, sometimes I'll try something and I'm like, okay, well, good learning, but that didn't work out how I don't like that, so I'm not gonna do that anymore. And then obviously sometimes it works out great. Yeah, so you know, as an artist, we're always experimenting and trying to push our own boundaries and learn new techniques. And so sometimes I'll try stuff and it doesn't work the way that I hoped or the way I wanted, and I will just remember that and move on. And then sometimes I'll learn new techniques or, you know, new types of media. So I'd say the things that end up most commonly in my work: spray paint, acrylic paint, paint pens, which is also kind of graffiti style inspired.
Yeah.
And then I also like to do a lot of mixed media stuff with collage. And so, for example, with, you know, a baseball player that I did that had a very long career and played for a lot of different teams, I did a piece where I took one of every single one of his baseball cards, including an autographed rookie card, and I laid that down first, and then I did a painting on top of that, and he loved it. It took a long time to collect all the cards on eBay, as I'm sure you know, but you know, it came out really cool. And so adding that mixed media component is something that is always super fun to do.
Yeah, and it pops. The stuff really, to me, it pops. It just stands out. It's different than, I don't want to say typical. It's sort of not a great word, but it just, to me, it stands out over what you traditionally used to see in the art world. And just amazing stuff.
Appreciate it.
We're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we're going to learn how Topps 2020 Project and Blake came together. So I wanted to talk about a new marketplace that is about to hit the sports card scene, and it's called StarStock. StarStock is building a sports card marketplace aimed to be faster and cheaper for flipping sports cards than any other platform. This is a ground level moment in the hobby, and StarStock is currently looking for people who want to be the first to sell their cards at launch of this new platform. It's due to launch in April this year, and here's what StarStock is offering you. 5% commission, no ingestion fees. You send in your cards, they do all the work and post them up for you. Cards are guaranteed and secured in their vault. Cards need to remain in the vault for trading. You can choose to ship your cards back at any time you'd like. StarStock will be a flipper's paradise. You can buy, flip, store, or ship cards with the click of a button. StarStock is only looking for sellers with rookie cards and or prospect cards of current players. For more details, that email again is mike@starstock.com. Or you can follow them on Instagram at StarStockMarket. All one word. That's at StarStockMarket. And we are back. Getting into the Topps 2020 project, for those that don't know that are listening, Topps has commissioned 20 artists, Blake being fortunately one of those, to do 20 iconic rookie cards and put their own spin on it, their own style and flair. And, speak to how how this all came about and that.
Sure. So it's crazy. I've always believed that things happen for a reason and you can kind of manifest your own destiny or whatnot. But I think that me getting involved in Topps is it was like the most concrete example of I've ever happened. It's never happened to me. So I knew a friend, a very good friend from college. His roommate used to work at Upper Deck.
Mm-hmm.
I had actually confused it. I thought that he worked at Topps, but I'd seen another card that Topps had released, some artist card, and I was like, man, that would be perfect. Topps would be like the ideal brand collaboration with me because I do these athletes and they have such big reach, and I grew up collecting them. And so I reached out to my friend Chris, and I said, Chris, does your roommate still work at Topps? Because I really, really want to work at Topps, and I need to find a way in the door. And he said, oh, no, actually it was Upper Deck, but he left anyways. He works in finance now. Sorry, I don't have any intro for you. I said, okay, I'm going to find another way to get a hold of them. And then it was literally like, I can't even express how crazy this was, but the very next day, I had an email in my inbox. It was a cold email from this guy, Jeff Heckman, who's running Project 2020 at Topps. And he says, hey, Blake, I've been a fan for a while. I'd like to talk to you about a project where we could potentially collaborate. And it was like, I put it out into the universe. I want to work at Topps. And the very next day in my email, Topps was like, we want to work with you. So naturally, the call went really well. They, told me about this project where they're having 20 different artists recreate 20 very iconic baseball cards, and then they're releasing them one at a time for 48 hours only. So it's kind of fun. Just it's really engaging, and also the project's going to go on all the way through the end of the year. So it's super exciting to have, especially with everything that's going on right now. Having something really to focus on and be really excited about as an artist is I'm really grateful for the timing of it all, I guess.
Yeah, a little bit of synchronicity there. Here you're trying to reach, get a hold of them, and then the next day, literally,
yeah, it was wild.
Well, like they say, some things are meant to be.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I've seen the Nolan Ryan, which I'm a Mets guy, and
nice.
he's obviously in the Mets uniform. But and again, going back to the one thing I love what you do is you ask for others' opinion. Hey, do you like this one? This one? What say you? Sort of. And I got to say that the Ryan out of the ones I've seen so far, and I'm not sure I've seen everyone, to be fair, but I've seen probably the majority of them, if not all of them. And the Ryan is really sharp with that, based off the white and the orange and the blue. It just jumps off that page, so to speak. And as someone who's a Mets guy, whether Nolan didn't play there super long, but that's where he started his career, and just that card is just tremendous by you. Just seeing that, it's just
appreciate that.
Yeah, whether you're a Mets fan or Nolan Ryan fan, I think both sides of those aisles are going to be happy with what you came up with, and again, to incorporate people's feedback in that is even more cooler in that. So have you?
Yeah.
Is that the first one that you've done at this point?
Yeah, so that one was the first one that was released.
Yeah.
And I have gotten really good feedback on it, which is really great. It's, it's humbling because I see all the other artists that are part of the project, and I really just respect every artist, but there's a lot of people involved in the project that I've followed and looked up to for a long time.
Yeah.
And so to be, doing a project alongside them is really awesome. And then to be getting great feedback from the collectors. And again, I think it comes back to the marketing side of things where, as soon as my card releases, my first thought is, okay, let me find where the hardcore fans are in the forums and on Twitter, and let's just start a conversation. I think that's helped, grow the business. In terms of the other cards that I've done, I have finished and submitted a Don Mattingly, which is my second card.
Actually, I saw that. I did see that. Yep.
Yeah, so that's the one where I did 4 different versions, and then I put it up for a vote, and I let everyone decide which one would actually be the card.
Yeah.
And it was great because it was actually pretty all the options got votes, but there was a clear winner.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have known, which of those 4, but obviously the people have strong opinions. And so now I've got, I just did the voting over the course of one night. So it was less than 24 hours. It got over 100 votes. And like, that's 100 people who feel like they have some skin in the game, where now when that card releases, which I believe is going to be on Thursday, April, 16th? Hopefully that's going to be the release date. We still hasn't been finalized. Yeah. But it'll be people that are going to be excited about the card because they were able to participate a little bit in the process.
Yeah, and I think you make a great point there. Someone who voted or even commented, hey, I like this one better than this one, or I like this one because of this reason. Like you said, they feel like they're part of the process. They're more likely to purchase that card when it goes for sale. And why wouldn't you, Yeah. And speaking of that, I guess I'd ask you, coming from the art world, do you think this is going to be a crossover type of product where maybe someone who loves art but doesn't necessarily collect cards might, purchase card? Do you think it's going to have that sort of effect?
Absolutely. I mean, I've had a handful of people, most of which people, that I've been friends with for a long time that are already following my art journey. But they've, they hit me up and said, hey, just want to let you know that I haven't bought a baseball card in 20 years. And you've got me excited about cards again. And like, I found my old collection, and now I'm like sitting there going through them. So it's super cool. I think that the crossover, and also like, as much as it sucks, everything that's going on right now in the world, everyone's sitting at home and needs some kind of escape and something to do. And, digging through the attic and finding your old baseball cards can keep you sane sometimes, I guess. Yeah,
no doubt. And I love hearing that, for somewhat your work in is rekindling someone's interest in cards again. And exactly. Even if it's just purchasing your artwork on the card, and then maybe it springboards from there. That's just cool to hear that.
And then, totally. And then also like a side benefit that I hadn't really thought about ahead of time. But like, obviously I'm promoting my own cards and letting all of my art collectors know, hey, this is what I'm working on right now. And so like, even if somebody's not a baseball card fan and doesn't buy the card, it's still like Topps is a household name, and it's a huge brand that everyone recognizes. And so people that have been thinking about, maybe buying a piece of art, see me working with a major brand. Yeah. It's doing nothing but helping, my credibility, which is, again, wasn't even the original thought, but now I'm seeing the results and I'm like, oh wow, this is cool on so many levels.
Oh yeah, I think it's a neat idea that Topps came up with, and now you're a part of it, which is awesome. Did they give you any kind of like, hey, you can't do this or you can't do that, or you have to do? Is there any sort of rules, or did they just kind of say, hey, here's the players, here's the originals, have at it?
Yeah, so they said they gave us a lot of creative control and flexibility. There were some boundaries, so obviously every artist is given the same reference cards. Yeah. So you've seen by now. I think we've seen almost every single player. There's a couple that haven't been released yet. I'm going to be doing the same type of card that every other artist is. But as you can see, like, all the art looks very different if, you compare the different artists' work. And so it'll be fun to see, like, 20 takes on the Mike Trout card is going to be 20 very different pieces of art. The only other constraint that they really gave us is they said that we can do whatever we want to the players and interpret it our own ways. We were just kind of warned, like, don't go too crazy with the team logos because the teams are obviously attached to those. Yeah. But, none of my art has been – everything that I've submitted has been approved right away. I don't know – I can't speak for every other artist, but I think that they're really letting us kind of play and do whatever we want to do.
Have creative license. So.
Which is awesome. I mean, that's
and I'm glad to hear that, because to me, if you're going to do a project like this, let the creators, being you guys, the artists, let you do what you want to do. Put your own interpretation, your own style, your own flair on it. And so when I heard about the project, that's the first kind of thing. I thought it was neat, and then I just said, man, I hope Topps really doesn't give a bunch of rules. You know what I mean? Like, I know there's got to be some sort of rules, obviously, but not too much where it kind of cramps an artist style, so to speak. And
totally. And I think they also, Topps also did a really good job picking a lot of very different artists.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of people that you'll see on the list that work even looks remotely similar. And so what I like about that is that it's going to be crystal clear at the end of the set, which is going to be a total of 400 cards, but I'll have 20 cards in it.
Yeah.
Like anyone looking at it, whether or not they know who I am, they're going to say, oh, all 20 of those are done by one person. And that goes for pretty much every artist that's part of it, which I think is just like, it's so cool where they didn't just say, okay, let's try and find, 20 artists that all do photorealistic portraits with oils, right? Which is, that's a very difficult medium, and nothing but respect for the people that do that. But it's like, they found people that everybody is doing something like totally wacky and different, which I really love.
Yeah, I think it's already been very successful. I think it's going to continue on that trend. I'm glad, Blake, you were included in that project, which I'm looking forward to. I did see the Ryan and the Manley. I'm looking forward to the 18 to come. You're in New York. I'm a New Yorker. Yep. I'm in Syracuse. I'm originally from Brooklyn, and I know that area. Obviously, with COVID-19 right now, is a hot spot. I'd be remiss to not ask you, number one, how you're doing and how's things there.
Yeah, I mean, New York is crazy, but I see it on the news like everyone else. I'm honestly a little bit of an introvert.
Yeah.
I like to have, I like to collaborate with other artists and have people over to my studio, but also just like being in my art studio or being at my apartment and working in isolation is something that I do anyways. And so I haven't like been directly affected, and it hasn't like been driving me crazy as much as it has other people that I know. And also, fortunately, there's really one person in my life that did sadly pass away from it, and that really sucks and hits hard.
Yeah, I'm
but
sorry.
In general, like, given the amount of people that I know, the even amount of people here in New York, like, it hasn't, directly affected a ton of people that I know, well.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry for your loss with the person you mentioned there.
No, I appreciate it. It's sad, man. It's a scary time that we're living in right now.
Yeah, and I was talking to Craig Grindler in this past week's show, and he's also in New York, in Brooklyn actually.
Yep.
And I'm a guy. I love shaking people's hands, looking someone in the eye, and introducing myself and chatting with them. I just hope when this is past and we get back to some sort of normalcy, I just hope we don't lose some of that interpersonal stuff that I was kind of brought up to do and cordial like that. I just hope we don't lose that and become impersonable, and I understand people's fears and people want to stay healthy. I 100% get it, but I just hope at some point we can kind of go back to like that the way it was. I hope we don't lose that, I guess.
I know. It would be nice to be able to high five and hug people again.
Yeah, no doubt.
Okay, so that's crazy. So Greg Kreindler is actually, he's the one. Remember how I said I saw someone's art on a card?
Yeah.
And that made me think of the Topps. Like, I've been following him for a long time.
Yeah, he does some
he's the guy.
crazy
like,
stuff.
That's the person I saw.
Yeah,
small world.
Yep. So you're going to follow him. Not that it matters what order, but so I even joked on my social media. 2 New York City based artists, two shows in a row, and he like you, he does some incredible stuff.
I love it. I love his work.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, Blake, number one, congratulations on being part of the project. Congratulations on all the great work that you produce. I love it. I love watching you. I even enjoy watching you it come together. I always at the end of the interview here, I always let the guests give out any of their websites, credentials, social medias. Take your time. Where people can see what you're doing and get a hold of you.
Sure. All right, we'll go with website first. I've got a few, but I think the easiest to remember is just blaketheartist.com.
Okay.
blaketheartist.com. That has all of my athlete work. It also has other, non-athlete work that I've done, and that's the most comprehensive website I have. In terms of social media stuff, on most platforms, I'm just at Blake Jamieson, which is my full name. Jamieson is spelled Jamieson.
Yep.
And the only exception to that is on Instagram, where I am at athlete.portraits. And I'm pretty active across all social media channels. So wherever someone hits me up on Twitter, I get back to everyone. Same thing goes for Instagram and everywhere else.
Yeah, I can attest to that. You're very interactive, which like we talked about. That's just awesome stuff. So, Blake, again, man, thank you for coming on and giving us a little bit of the behind the scenes, if you will, of this whole Topps 2020. Again, continue, be safe, be healthy during these times, and maybe we can have you on again later in the process and kind of recap and catch up.
Totally, I would love that. I really appreciate you having me on.
Oh, no problem, anytime. Let me tell you about Iron Sports Cards and Collectibles. They're your number one source for all your PSA grading submission needs. They're constantly submitting, so they are always at the ready when you're ready. They offer various turnaround levels at the lowest prices around. Cards are insured to and from PSA at no additional cost to you. And they even provide the card savers your precious cards need to be put in before being sent to PSA. They take care of that for you. And because of their elite status at PSA, they have some of the best turnaround times around. They even have group chats for each submission, so you know exactly where your status is on your cards. They have open dialogue and open communication. What are you waiting for? Contact Rob on Facebook on Iron Sports Card Group. That's Iron Sports Card Group on Facebook. Or get a hold of Rob on Twitter at Iron Sports Cards. All one word, at Iron Sports Cards. They'll take care of you.
John, you seem like an astute man.
Thank you, Mr. Walken.
Maybe you can help explain something to me.
Well, I'll give it my best shot. All right, this week's question is one I literally got DM'd an hour ago. I haven't even responded to it via text back yet. I figured it's a question I get asked every so often, especially since I start doing 4 podcasts. So I'm going to read it literally right here from my phone. It says, dude, how do you do 4 podcasts? And so that's question mark. So that, how do I do, can come in many contexts. I guess he means time-wise. So not always easy. You need to balance out, in my case, my work life and my home life and my podcast life. It's a part of a big pie. I think I do a decent job. Let's talk about those 4 shows. Let's talk about not the other 3 first. Hobby Hotline is a group of 8 or 9 of us podcast hosts. I'm not on, obviously, every week. It's a rotation. And so, for me, it's easy. I mean, I do some promoing, give some ideas, but, you just show up on the day you're scheduled, and I can talk. I don't need any sort of script, and so very simple for me to do that show. Roughing the Passer, my show with Drew, NFL podcast that we do live 9:30s on Sunday night, and in season we do a Thursday preview show. In the off season, we don't do it every week. And that show too, when you have 2 guys with the same goal and working together, that show is not difficult as well, and it's late at night at 9:30, and my house goes to bed early except for me, so most of the times my wife is in bed watching TV, getting ready for sleep, and so I'm not disrupting anything. I'm a night owl anyway. And then the other show, Hobby Quick Hits, my other smaller show offshoot of this, is a 15-20 minute, really no script, just kind of what's on my mind podcast whenever I want to do it. It doesn't have a set day like this show does. So that one's not super difficult as well. And this show, I'll call it the flagship. This is the one that's really the most time consuming, work intensive. Promotion. I have sponsors, so I have to work with them to suit to their needs. To producing the show, which you hear the show or it comes out on Fridays, but I've recorded segments or portions of the show every day leading up to that, and so. It's a labor of love. I got to line up the autograph guests, the interview guests, set those up, coordinate that, and it's some work, but it's a labor of love. I love it. I've done it now 17 months. Where the show, I've said this over and over again, where the show is now to where we started. Wow, just crazy. So, and thank God, because I love it, and you get some of that fruits of your labor here. And but you gotta balance it out. I've been in different things where I've seen stuff consume people. I used to do show circuit, not every weekend, but maybe 2 weekends a month, and I knew fellow dealers that were doing shows every weekend, and some of those guys got divorced. Their wives gave them an ultimatum: you can't do shows every week. If you continue to do that, I'm going to not be here anymore. And so a few of them guys I know personally got divorced. I still play, but I used to play a lot more men's competitive tourney type softball. And that was an every weekend thing. And I didn't do it every weekend, but I had some teammates who did. They were missing their kids' events, recitals and games. And finally spouses there told them they had enough. They filed for divorce. So I've seen the bad side of getting consumed by something you enjoy. I enjoy softball. I enjoy doing shows, but I can't do them all the time. I do both still. I do the podcast, 4 of them. But you got to balance stuff out. You can't let it consume you where you're ignoring other facets of your life where it causes you strife. And I'm not going to mention names. I've even seen a few podcasters, in my opinion, and again, I'm not behind closed doors, or I don't live at their house, so I don't know, and opinions can be wrong. But I've seen some that were they used to talk about their family or their personal life on social media, and then they got podcasted, and you saw a lot less of that. And and I don't know. We look at I'm talking about it publicly because they made it publicly. Jazz family. This guy would post YouTube videos every day, sometimes multiple, and then he made an announcement. His wife's divorcing him because he's too much with cars. He's got young kids, and now he's got, his life's turned upside down. And I did a show on Hobby Quick Hits about addiction, hobby being an addiction. That might be something he I don't know if he'll say it, but maybe that's what cost him, his marriage and his, seeing his kids every day. And so, it's a fine line. It's hard. You got to balance everything out. You can't be consumed by it. People maybe in social media say, "Oh, John Newman, Sports Card Nation, John Newman, Hobby Quick Hits, Roughing the Passer. He appears on Hobby Hotline." But when we die, and this is all podcasters, and I'm not trying to be morbid here, there's going to be nothing on our tombstone that says John Newman, great podcaster, John Newman, pretty good podcaster. It's going to be nothing. I don't want to be known necessarily as that. I want to be a good husband, a good father, a good person, and that sort of thing. Podcasting, if you will, is part of my hobby, with the hobby being part of my hobby. So you can't let it consume you. You have to balance it out. Sometimes for some it's probably easier than done. For me, I think I do a pretty good job with it. I don't know if I've ever talked about this on the air or even mentioned to anyone. Recently I was asked to get involved with a Syracuse University podcast to do like a football podcast about SU football, maybe some basketball, just an overall Syracuse sports podcast. And I'd love to do it, but I can't fit a fifth one really in without giving up another one. And right now I don't want to give up any of those other ones. So sometimes you have to say no, and there was an example where I did. All right, giving away 5 free 45-day PSA submissions, courtesy of Iron Sports Cards. If you follow us on Twitter, you saw how you could enter there. but we're going to give you another shot to gain an entry into that 5 free giveaway. And here it is. Here's a trivia question. If you can answer this question, direct message me the answer. Don't make it public so everyone can steal it. Private message me or direct message the show on any of our social medias. And here's the trivia question. Brett Favre's first pass in the NFL was completed to a fellow Hall of Famer. Who was that player? So let us know who Brett Favre's first completed pass was to. If you tell us the correct answer, we'll give you an entry into the 5 free PSA submissions courtesy of Iron Sports. Good luck. Rookie! All right, welcome to another edition of the Rookie Rollercoaster segment. Really hoping that we would be talking about sports being played, but it is what it is. So I picked 2 monsters this week, 2 iconic cards in the hobby. They don't need any introduction other than I have to tell you what they are. The Michael Jordan 86-87 Fleer rookie and the 1979-80, and we went with the O-Pee-Chee version of the Wayne Gretzky rookie. Both 4-digit cards in raw form most of the time, and obviously if you get into graded, even more so. And so we're going to look at the performance of both of these iconic cards over 4 months, since January to now. And we'll start with the iconic Jordan rookie right now. And I went with PSA 8s as far as a gauge to see raw and PSA 8s of each card. So let's start with the Jordan. Currently, you can get a PSA 8 Jordan. They're not a ton of them, but around $2,400, and raw Jordans are $600. But I'll be honest with you, you got to be careful with the raw Jordans. A ton of fakes out there, a ton. I personally would not even touch a raw Jordan. Some of these are really done really well, and I wouldn't trust it. But that's just me. And so $2,300, $600 for the raw. You got the Last Dance documentary from ESPN, the 10-part series coming out. All the Jordan stuff right now is just going through the roof. So if you can get one at a decent price, if it's not too late, good luck to you. I don't know if that's possible anymore, but yeah, I mean, his stuff is just, I mean, even the lower tier stuff. I was, I went on eBay the other night and I was shocked at how even some of those lower, cards, the Fleers and the hoops were bringing, especially, graded 10. So Jordan stuff is just red hot right now. So it might be you might have missed the train, so to speak, but if you find one at a good deal somewhere, it's getting tougher to do. And then, I went back to January, and there really weren't a lot of Jordan's sales even in January. I will say, out of these 2 cards, there seems to be a lot more Gretzky's on the market than Jordan's, believe it or not. So let's segue right into Gretzky. Now, again, I went with the O-Pee-Chee, which is the Canadian version, the tougher of the 2. There's a lot more Topps, and the Topps is actually significantly less in price. But I went with the one most people would try to acquire, which is the O-Pee-Chee. And an O-Pee-Chee 8 will range you right now between $2,400 and $2,500. And back in January, that same card was about not much less, $2,200, $2,300. So a slight uptick. I'm not sure why. There's no Gretzky documentary that I'm aware of, but it's just one of those popular cards. It's slowly going to increase over time, and that's what I'll attribute it to. The raw version of this card goes for about $650 in current times, and then in January, 4 months ago, it was around the 400 range. So about $250 more 4 months later. So both iconic cards. Jordan's going to probably increase more with the series coming out, as any kind of Jordan stuff is. So right now, if you actually truthfully, if you're holding any Jordans, I probably wouldn't sell them right at the moment. I think you got some more wiggle room to make some more
straight cash, homie.
So I think I'd hold the Jordans a little bit longer before throwing them out there for sale. I think by doing that, you'll get a few extra dollars. But even right now, they're just bringing incredible amounts of money. As far as Gretzky goes, I think that's going to be the more steady. Nothing of significance going on with it right now for a major increase, unlike the Jordan. So that one I think is more of a hold. Maybe if you can get a couple raw ones at a decent price, got to be careful there. There's some fakes of the Gretzky as well, but if you can get some raw ones at a great price, maybe to that are slabbable and kind of bump up your ROI by doing it that way. That's something I try to do with cards is buy them raw, unslabbed, and then hopefully you do well. I actually speaking of that, little segue, I recently bought a Capo Caco Young Guns canvas from Series 1. I'm going to be honest with you, I didn't pay a lot for it. I bought it when it came in. So anytime you buy a raw card on the secondary market, in this case eBay, you're not sure exactly it's going to come in what condition. Now, obviously, if it has any flaws, you can reverse the transaction, file a dispute. But you're not thinking it's going to be in gem mint condition necessarily. And this Young Guns canvas Caco came in, I got to be honest with you, really, really nice shape. And I literally sent it out the next day to the SGC, and it got the gold label pristine. And so that, small double-digit investment just skyrocketed. So that's what you can do. If you're into graded cards, that's what you can do. I know everyone's not into graded cards. Some people like it, some people don't. Some people are just getting into it. But I tell you what, you play your cards right, pun intended, you can do well by buying raw and then getting slabbed. And, it's not breaking news there. So something I really like to do. One of One Card Shop offers a tremendous breaking experience, great customer service, and they're constantly pulling fire. Steve and his family take care of you like one of their own and treat you right. Anyone can break, but no one treats you like One of One. Come check them out on Instagram at one_of_one_card_shop. For all the hot breaks, get a gold mailer headed your way. That does it for episode 72. I want to thank my guest, Blake Jamieson, from the Topps 2020 project, and his own amazing artwork. Led some insight to how that project came all about and what he's doing with it. So it'll be interesting to see as he progresses through what those next 18 cards are going to look like. Next week's show is going to be unlike anything we've done before. And I know I've said that before. We have 11-year Major League veteran, Randy Lurch. He's played for the Phillies, Brewers, Expos, and Giants in the, again, 11-year career in the majors. Battled drug and alcohol addiction to the point where he almost died numerous times. He's the author of a book called God in the Bullpen. We're going to talk. All bets are off. He told me we can talk about anything. We're going to talk about some of his trials and tribulations. He testified in 1981 against the Phillies team doctor, a kind of courageous decision that knowing it was going to affect his baseball career. And so we're going to talk to Randy. I read his book. It's tremendous. He leaves nothing the chance, and he told me nothing is off limits. So we're going to talk about a few different things and how he survived, how he battled back. He's now clean and sober. Doctors at one point gave him 3 months to live, and he beat that, and he's still here. And like I said, he's clean and sober, and we're going to talk about that. And he's, again, he said to ask him anything, and he's going to talk about some Pete Rose stories, some Tug McGraw stories, teammates of his, and Tug McGraw in particular was very instrumental in his life and helping him out. So it's going to be a tremendous interview, different than anything previous. There's going to be some baseball in there, some life. Randy is doing things now off the field to help other people and outreach and making an impact in people's lives. And, it's funny. I remember as a younger kid watching Randy play. He actually always used to really handle my Mets pretty good. I believe he was like 8-3 with a 3.64 ERA against the Mets. And, it's funny. You watch him as a kid, and now I'm going to be talking to him about life and trials and tribulations and kind of surreal where, the show is gone. But Randy's got a great message. Whether it's drug or alcohol addiction or any other thing that may be affecting your life in a negative way, he's got a positive message, and you're going to hear it. I don't want to give away everything. There's going to be some surprises in there as well. And again, it's going to be some baseball stories as well, some funny ones. He's a really down-to-earth guy, and glad he made some time for the show. And so if you can, definitely don't miss this interview. It's going to be tremendous. Well, with that being said, we'll see you next week with Randy Lurch, and I want to wish everyone well as we continue to get through current times and events. I'm hearing stimulus checks are starting to roll out, so hopefully those help everyone out. Make sure you spend that money in the right place. The hobby's great, and if you can afford to do it, that's fine. But take care of yourselves and your families, and we'll see you in 7 days. Take care.
You've been listening to the Sports Card Nation podcast. Join host John Newman next week as he gives you another jam-packed episode of all things related to the sports card hobby, and a little extra fun too. Don't forget to check out the show on Instagram at Sports Card Nation Podcast.